Hey everyone, welcome back to the Worldview Minute. I'm Pastor Levi Secord. I hope you see that as we've been walking through the Christian worldview, the Christian faith, and what it has to say about the state and government and politics, all of that wrapped up into one, that the common tropes that are so common today, that the Bible doesn't have anything to say about this, that the Bible is above this, God doesn't care about this realm of life, is just not true. It's categorically untrue. The Bible actually has a lot to say about this. In fact, as I've been trying to plan this out, I keep adding episodes because there's just so much the Bible has to say about this realm of life. And if we really want to be people who want to preach the whole counsel of God, many pastors say that. We want to preach the whole counsel of God. And we affirm texts like 2 Timothy 3:16, 17. What's around there? That all of Scripture is God-breathed. All of it is profitable so that you can be thoroughly and completely equipped for every good work. If we really believe that, then we have to apply it, yes, even to this area of life. And we should note that the world and the evil one don't want us to do that. And that is exactly why we must. And today we're going to unpack a very famous passage, Matthew 22:15 through 22, in which Jesus is approached with a trick question about whether or not they should pay taxes to Caesar. And what we're going to see here, even though we're really familiar with the story, that there's a lot going on in there. So what I want to do is we're going to read the story quickly, I'm going to unpack it, and then I want to make 4 quick applications for our political philosophy as we think about what does Jesus is saying here have to do with us today, and how we should think about the state, the government, and politics. So let's read the passage here. All right, the Pharisees went and plotted how to entangle him, that's Jesus, in his words. And they sent their disciples to him, along with the Herodians, saying, "Teacher, we know that you are true and teach the way of God truthfully. You do not care about anyone's opinion, for you are not swayed by appearances." So look here, they're trying to trick Jesus, and they start the trap by buttering him up. Hey, Jesus, we know that you don't care what anyone thinks about you, that you just speak your mind. And they really want him to speak his mind here. All right, so what do they say to him? "Tell us then what you think. Is it lawful to pay taxes to Caesar or not?" Right, this is a trick question. Why is it a trick question? It's a trick question because either way Jesus answers this, yes or no, he gets himself in trouble. If he says, yes, it is lawful to pay taxes to Caesar, the commoner is going to hate Jesus. They are going to hate him because Caesar is their oppressor. They want their nation back. This is an invading foreign force who taxes them to death. And so they think they have Jesus as the problem. If he says yes, he's going to lose popularity. If he says no, he is now in rebellion against the Roman authorities there, who they can run to and have him put to death for inciting insurrection. Verse 18, "But Jesus, aware of their malice, said, 'Why put me to the test, you hypocrites?'" It's not buying what they're selling. Says, "Show me the coin for the tax." And they brought him a denarius. And Jesus said to them, "Whose likeness and inscription is on this?" They said, "Caesar's." Then he said to them, "Therefore, render to Caesar, that is, give to Caesar the things that are Caesar's, and to God the things that are God's." When they heard this, they marveled, and they left him and went away. Now, how did Jesus leave them stunned or marveled? If he's only affirming that you have to pay your taxes, right? He didn't avoid the trap. If you don't understand the context here, then you don't understand why it is that Jesus actually got out of the trap and exposed them for hypocrites. So he says to them, "Why do you put me to the test, you hypocrites?" And he asks them a question, right? "Show me the coin for the tax." And they take out of their pocket a coin of the denarius, which has an image of Caesar upon it. And it also has an inscription. What does the inscription say? It says Caesar is the son of God. His claim to divinity. Caesar claimed at least a partial divinity and demanded worship. And so these people who are trying to paint themselves as holy are actually found to have Caesar and a blasphemy in their pocket. I'm going to put it in modern parlance, they are in Caesar's pocket. They're already compromised in this. He's exposed them as hypocrites. So he asked them whose likeness is on it. Caesar's likeness is on it. And there's more weight to it than just the likeness of Caesar. He says, well, since it has Caesar's likeness on it, Caesar has a claim to it. So give it to him, what is his, but give to God what is God's. There's a double meaning going on here. The likeness points back to Genesis 1. Man is made in the likeness of God. So what is Jesus saying here? He's saying, give to Caesar the thing that has his likeness on it. Give yourself to God because you have God's likeness upon yourself. When they heard this, they marveled. And the way in which Jesus avoids the trap is he both affirms Caesar's right to tax and he limits Caesar's authority so that the people are not like, oh yay, Caesar, Caesar, Caesar. All right, so 4 things, 4 applications from this text. we can say that from this text, the state has the right to certain things. The state does have a right from God to claim certain things, chiefly here being taxes. When the state is doing its proper function, when it's taxing people as it should be, we are to joyfully submit. We are to joyfully do this. The state has a proper function. Romans 13, it is the servant of God. And as the servant of God, we are to give honor to who is due and give taxes to who it is due. This teaches us that anarchy is objectively bad. The servant is there to punish evildoers and to be an avenger of God's wrath. When the state isn't doing its job, or the state doesn't exist, the innocent suffer. Evil thrives. We have this problem all across this nation right now. DAs, police departments, governors, mayors who refuse to punish wickedness and evildoers in their midst. And what do we see? The innocent suffer, and evil and wickedness increases in that realm. Right? The state does have certain God-given responsibilities and the authority to exercise those responsibilities. This is God's design. Second, the state has no right to other things. In some way, there's a limit here. There are some things that are not Caesar's. Give to Caesar's his, give to God what is his. There are certain things that Caesar has no right to. You and I, we take this for granted because we have grown up in the Western tradition of government. But for much of world history, this wasn't the case, especially for Rome. Caesar did not see any of life outside of his sway or any of his empire, anything in it as not his. All right, Abraham Kuyper of the Dutch Reformed tradition, a great political theorist, Christian political theorist, he wrote this, recognizing that the ancient world, all throughout that, rulers claimed divinity. They claimed to be God in some way, shape, or form. And he observes this about the Roman Empire at the end. As iniquity drew to its close, there was no freedom left, no nations, no spheres. There was only one sphere, one world empire, under one sovereign state. His point here is that Rome and Caesar had swallowed up all of life and all of the world. There was only one nation, one ruler, and in this he became a mockery of God. The state, though, Jesus says, does not have unlimited authority, does not have authority over all of life. There are certain things that do not belong to it. We can say, at least from here, that worship and the worship of God is clearly there. And also, I think individuals don't belong to the state. Ultimately, they belong to God. Third, all authority we see here is delegated and therefore limited. This is where we're going to develop the idea of sphere sovereignty in the next episode. All authority is delegated and therefore limited. All authority you have, all authority anyone has, is not an authority that is inherent or natural to the individual. God alone is sovereign over absolutely everything, and he delegates or gives out authority, and this naturally limits its scope or in its power. Kuyper says again, man never possesses authority over his fellow man in any other way than by an authority which descends upon him from the majesty of God. That is, two humans, they're equal. The only way that one human gets authority over another human is that God delegates that authority that descends upon him from God, because God is sovereign over all. The state is not. And this is why your authority only goes as far and for the purposes that God gives it to you. God gives the state certain authority, therefore the state is limited. To put it another way, when Jesus says, give to Caesar what is Caesar's and give to God what is God's, who gets to determine where those lines are drawn? Does the state get to determine for itself what belongs to it? Or does God get to do that? If you're a Christian, the answer is obvious. Everything belongs to God. God is over everything. He tells the state what belongs to the state. The state doesn't tell God what belongs to him. To do that is to make the state God. Fourth, and finally, where there is no God above, the state moves in and attempts to be God. It becomes a grotesque mockery of God's sovereignty. These world empires, these tyrants, they try to put their tentacles into all of life and even try to take over the whole world. And what they are trying to do is a pale comparison, a mockery of the sovereign God who rules over every sphere of life, every inch of life, everything of everything. That's what tyrants are. This is what we saw in Revelation 13. Right? Tyranny is demonic. Tyranny is idolatrous. Right? You're trying to do what only God can do. And this is why Caesar claimed to be divine. This is why Pharaoh claimed to be divine. This is why world leaders all around the world have claimed to be divine. And even in modern senses, in atheistic states, the state becomes a functional God. What is the state's authority? Whatever it has the power to do. And that is a terrible, terrifying thought. And what we're seeing today in the Western tradition is that as it abandons God, the state is growing into this behemoth. And its tentacles are trying to go into all of life and it's trying to control everything because it doesn't recognize the truth of Matthew 22. That there are spheres in life, all authority is delegated. The state has right to some things. It does not have a right to absolutely everything because only God has that right. We can't take this for granted. What Jesus taught here not only affirmed the state, but it was revolutionary and it was subversive to Rome. That is why the crowd did not turn on Jesus. He affirmed the state exists for a reason, but the state is limited. We're going to take in the next episode, we're going to look at how this has been picked up and applied in the Western tradition through the idea of sphere sovereignty. So I encourage you to like, comment, and share this episode as we continue to unpack that Christian worldview 1 minute at a time.